should watch to forecast on how the tendencies of interest rates. First of all, which is the gap between the credit growth and the deposit growth, and the absolute value between them. Of course, the bigger the gap, the higher the pressures for the interest to be high. The second element is the inflation rate, which is also announced very frequently by the authorities of Vietnam. And with the moderate inflation level, of course, the pressure for the government, for the central bank to have impact on the increasing of the rate will be lower. And the third element is very specific for the Vietnamese, for the Vietnam economy for time being, which is the disbursement of the mega project of Vietnam, which have a big impact on the requirement of the funding resource. And the faster the disbursements of this big project in terms of the credit funding to them will have impact on the increasing of the rate. Last but not least is the Fed interest rate, with the rate to be kept at high level for time being. Of course, the central banks would keep an eye on how they can maintain the stability of exchange rates of Vietnamese dong. And if the US dollar's rate is high, then the tendency of the central bank will believe that will keep the interest rate of Vietnamese dong at the certain level of around the level for time being to maintain the pricing, the exchange rate of Vietnamese dong.
Next question is about credit growth drivers, asked by VP Bank, Vina Capital, VDSC, and HSC. What are VIB's credit growth drivers by segment and product? Can VIB sustain or accelerate credit growth in second half? And is growth demand-led or deposit-led, and has retail credit demand generally recovered? Mr. Vu, could you also share your thoughts on this?
Okay, thank you. We believe that the disbursement, or the credit growth or driver for the credit growth of VIB is reflected by the structures of its balance sheet and the dynamic we are doing the first time being in various segments. One of the main consumptions of the credit first time being is in retail side, as I mentioned to you earlier. And for retail, of course, we are talking about various areas, and we believe that for VIB, the key driver for retail segment will still be on the mortgage, but more on the mortgage in the new township, where the property are more standardized. And also for retail, we have credit cards, business loans, auto loans, also the good consumptions of credit for the growth of VIB, the credit. On the other side, although the corporate banking of VIB is representing around 30% only versus about 70% of retail, but the dynamic is there. I.e., for the second half of the year, that we expect that corporate banking continue to contribute its dynamics in growing the credit portfolio of the bank on prudent basis. And for the whole year, we expect that the bank will be in line with the credit quota given by central bank to us.
Our next question is about fee income growth asked by Maybank Investment. Could you share the key drivers behind the strong fee income growth in first half, and how sustainable do you accept this momentum to be going forward? I would like to invite Ms. Tong to answer this question.
Thank you for the question. I believe that you may know that the NIM of the banking industry in the H1 2026 a little bit squeezing due to the increasing of the interest rate. So for us, and I believe that for the whole of the banking industry, the fee income is much more important. And right now, all of the banks and belong to that. Us, VIB believe that the fee is one of the most important driver right now. For the fee income in retail banking, we believe we have three KPI very strong and important driver. The first one, that the CAC business, at the CAC fee income growing like year on year from 8 years ago until now, growing around 20 to 30%. And it's very sustainable and growing with the spending of the CAC and the successful of the CAC influx growing. For the second driver is kind of like the bank assurance fee income. It used to be very strong in the first part of the period of 2018, 2019, and right now it still remains the very important key driver for the fee income of VIB. And the third one is about the transactional banking, and you maybe know about the business banking I just shared in the presentation. It's another upcoming driven for the fee income from RB. Alongside with that, I believe from wholesale banking and kind of like treasury, there are some strategy about driving the fee from the customer collective like that, and alongside with the RB. And for that, we believe the fee income will be driven and rising alongside and still be very important for the next periods of 2026. Thank you.
Next question is about capital management asked by mass investors. Could VIB provide a more detailed update on the advantages and challenges of implementing the Advanced Capital Calculation Standard, the IRB-based approach under Basel III? I would like to invite Mr. Zoom to answer this question.
Thank you for the question. This is a very interesting one. And okay, let me tell you a story about 6 or 7 years ago when we work out strategy for the IRB approach. Then, okay, we think about that, okay, should we do for the retail or the corporate? And our choice is on the retail. And finally, after 6 years nowadays, that proved to be a success choice because when you look at the retail portfolio and we look at the condition or the requirement for the IRB approach, believe that the data is very important, and that is a crucial factor because you can raise the capability, you can hire good talent to do the modeling, you can have a good system, but without data, low quality data, we cannot do the IRB because the model will be not a successful one. And in the past several years, we have been working very closely with many data agencies, like in Vietnam we have the Ministry of Police in charge of your identification card. Then you can do the cleanup of all the data under the identification, so we can ensure that the one borrower have only one ID card, and all the data related to that borrower can be cleaned up and be synchronized, so we can have good data. And the second thing is that in VIB we have been applying the many internal model like the scorecard, application scorecard, behavior scorecard, collection scorecard in our retail, and we can track the performance of the scorecard. We do the validation, so we can adjust our model accordingly. So finally, when we do the PD, LGD, ID, the application in the retail in the real use test help us to do the modeling properly under the Basel III. So okay, now let's talk about the disadvantage or challenge. Yeah, that's more on the corporate side because still now the Ministry of Police, the C06, they are working on the projects to clean up the database of the corporate, especially the micro SME one. But I strongly believe that with the very strong determination and right approach to clean up the micro SME and new requirement on the payment through the account, on the tax declaration and so on, then we soon will have a good database or good data of the micro SMEs, especially on the revenue, on the the tax invoice, can be electric or like digitalized, so we can have good data for the modeling. So that's all for my question, for my reply.
Next question is about net interest margin, asked by Thinviet Securities, VICAP GSC, and Shinhan Securities. How will VIB manage or improve NIM in second half of 26 and 2027 amid rising deposit rates and competitive pressure on deposit pricing? Does management expect NIM to stay flat or improve further in second half? I would like to invite Ms. Ha to answer this question.
Thank you for your questions. In my opinion, NIM is a clearly important topic for all investors, and especially in the market context, banking industry is pressure with the downward trend in NIM. So as far as net interest income still a largest component of the bank income. So in the first half of 2026, we maintain our NIM remain stable at 3.1%, as I mentioned in my presentation, despite higher deposit rates and very strong competition in funding mobilization. So for going forward, we will manage our NIM broadly stable at a current level in both lending side and deposit side. On the lending side, we continue to optimize our lending portfolio across segments, retail, SME, corporate, and institutional, balancing between yields, growth, and asset quality. On the funding side, we continue to concentrate on growing CASA, the low-cost funding, and while carefully managing deposit pricing, as well as raising of soft funds from international institutions to with reasonable cost. To now with SB1, we have planned to get an offshore deal with amount of nearly 500 million USD in the second half. So this provides us a sufficient funding with a reasonable cost to support our growth in the second half. For the longer periods, we expect to manage our NIM remains healthy and sustainable NIM, and we expect to have some upside in NIM if our funding costs decrease gradually in the next period. So that's my answer for this question. Thank you.
Our next question is about NPL trends and provisioning, asked by BVSC and Thinviet Securities. What is the trend in new NPL formation and provisioning for second half of 2026 and 2027, and how is asset quality if interest rates remained elevated? Mr. Zoom, would you please answer?
Okay, thank you for the question. So nowadays, definitely when we look at the market, you see the lending interest rate, due to the crude oil price increase, or the inflation increase. So, and we also look at the real estate market. There's some negative factors, and of course, in my functions, definitely those factors will put a stress test on how we forecast the NPL for the bank. And yes, it's true that we see some slight, pick up in the Q2 due to the cash flow impact, like I just mentioned earlier, the rising lending interest rate. But on the other hand, we are seeing more long-term, or more many strong solution or measure from the government to put the real estate under the control. A few days ago, you can see that there's the so-called the resolution number 21, approved or issued by the General Secretary of the Vietnam, and with strong emphasis on to control the price of the real estate, to put the market under the control. And there are many details you can look at the newspaper. And then now the National Assembly, they are discussed on the new amendment to the three important law on real estate, law on housing, and on the real estate business, and which I believe that will cool down the real estate market and also reduce the pressure on the rising interest rate, and that will help all the banks or all the banking system will benefit from those solutions. So we have a better, sustainable, longer run for the bank. And that's why that I believe that thanks to the also change in the liquidity risk framework, recently the Circular 32, they have widened the short-term funding used for long-term, medium, long-term loan to 40%, and the change in the ratio of the treasury deposit in banking system. So I believe that those measures in both short-term and medium, long-term run will help the bank to manage the NPL much better and cool down the real estate and rising interest rate. Yeah. That's all for my response.
Next question is about funding strategy asked by ACBS, VDSC, and HSC. Could you share VIB's funding strategy amid intensifying competition for funding and deposits? Ms. Ha, over to you.
Thank you for your questions. From the beginning of this year, as you can see, funding mobilization is very competitive, and VIB is in the same situation with other banks. So regarding to the funding strategy, I think it's a very hot topic for this current situation. So our funding strategy is quite straightforward to maintain a diversified and stable funding to support our growth. And of course, customer deposit remain our core funding source, in which we try to mobilize CASA, low-cost funding, long-term deposits, while carefully manage deposit pricing. And at the same time, we will diversify our funding source through interbank, value paper, and offshore borrowing. And that gives us more flexibility to manage funding costs and liquidity. So offshore funding, as I mentioned in the earlier answers, we have a pipeline of $1 billion from offshore funding in the next period, and currently we secure around $500 million, and we expect to get this deal in the second half. So of course it depends on pricing and market condition, but we expect we target to get this deal in the second half. So overall, with our capacity in funding mobilization in the first half, with around 8% year to date, we target to diversify our funding source. We believe that we can have a sufficient funding capacity to support our growth in the second half. So that's my response for this question. Thank you.
Our next question is about customer growth and acquisition asked by mass investors. Please share an update on VIB's customer growth and acquisition strategy, and where do you see the biggest opportunities going forward? I would like to invite Ms. Tong to answer this question.
Thank you for the question. From our view, we believe the acquisition have to start from the customer. So we have to have the solution best fit for them to acquire the customer through their demand about the financial services. Secondly, we believe from our like my presentation, you can see that 95% acquisition channel from the digital and the digital tool like the hybrid channel. So the digital channel is more and more important right now to acquire the customer, especially for this generation in the market, and their demands to receive the service easily and simplicity through the digital line. And the last one, through the partnership, is the key for a successful factor to acquire 500,000 customers in the H1 2026. And that's very important for us to approach and provide the best fit solution for them. So these kind of three factors very significantly impact in the result of the acquisition. But for us, acquisition is just like the starting point and more about like the usage, the loyalty, or the kind of like engagement with the customer is more important than that. And we are preparing for the whole of the journey to kind of like engage with the customer right after the acquisition phase. So that's the thing that we think is more important right now for all of the retail banking to attract with the customer. Thank you. That's my question. My answer for my questions.
Next question is about infrastructure lending, asked by Mayurif Asset Fund Management. Would VIB participate in lending to infrastructure projects outside the standard credit quota? Mr. Vu, could you share your thoughts?
Thank you for the questions. Yes, I mean, it is very particular in Vietnam that where you have certain kind of lending that's not included in the quota given every year by the central bank. And in Vietnam, the credit quota is quite important. Most of the years, since the time central banks are applying this, banks with a strong base for risk management always believe that they would like to have a higher quota to make the lending and providing credit to their customers, including the VIB. And when the central bank and the government agreed on certain important projects to be excluded from the quota, the calculations, it's a kind of incentive for the bank to look at those projects and have enough room to provide credit to those mega projects. For VIB, of course, this is considerations that we always are looking at. Some of the developers and investors of those projects are already the clients borrowing the borrowers of VIB. So definitely that we are looking at the new projects in the same lines that we are looking at any new project that they are having, even if it is that there is a exclusion or not exclusion from the credit quota. On the other hand, we see no rationale to have any sacrifications in terms of risk criteria in exchange of the exclusion of the credit quota for providing the loans to those projects, i.e. that we are open and we are considering providing credit to some of those projects, especially that when developers are already our credit customers. But the appetite for us is only when the risk parameter of those projects are in line with the appetite of the bank. There will be no sacrifications in terms of risk considerations when we are looking at this. Any specific project that we already given, so we are those credit as such, not yet, but we are considering, and it might come at the later part of the year.
Our last question is about VIB's card business, asked by mass investors. Could you share an update on VIB's card business and how the strategic partnership with Visa will shape its future direction and growth opportunities? I would like to invite Ms. Tung to answer this last question.
Thank you for the question. In the CAC business, the partnership is mandatory for that, and Visa is one of the very important partner in the CAC industry. As the largest payment network in the world, when we cooperate with Visa, we believe there's advantages about the solution, the technology, and the ecosystem can provide and bring up to the solution with the CAC product, and the payment ecosystem is very important in our consideration of the partnership. And together with Visa, right now we provide a lot of kind of like the CAC product and the CAC payment services. For example, the BizPay I just presented in the presentation for the acceptance network for the customer when they go to the small merchant to accept the CAC for the payment. So for that, within this kind of partnership, we believe take the advantages of our VIB as like the leading in the CAC business about the solution, the technology, and together with Visa, the largest network in the world, together we can build a very like the first in the market product, bring to the customer the experience unique and kind of like exclusive. That's the thing we would like to build a relationship and bring to our customer. That's the all of the answer for my question. Thank you.
Okay, so this question marks the end to our webinar. Thank you very much to Mr. Vu, Ms. Ha, Mr. Zoom,